Hello YouTube, Dave here again. So Pathfinder 2nd Edition has been out for nearly a year now, or probably about a year by the time this video actually comes out. And I've had some people still ask what, my thoughts are on certain books, and even though I've done videos on most of them, I've never actually done like a buyer's guide type of series for the 2nd edition of Pathfinder. I've done it for other RPGs and older editions of other RPGs. So I thought it'd be sort of interesting to go and do that now for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and this is going to be like a three-part series, at least at this point. Part 1, I will be taking a look at the hardcover books that have come out so far. As of the date that I am recording this, I am recording this prior to the release of the Advanced Player's Guide. So that I won't be able to discuss that book in this video. But similar to other things that I plan on doing, like updated versions of other buyer's guides, I will eventually do that for Pathfinder 2nd Edition as well. Paizo has done a pretty decent job supporting Pathfinder 2e. There's usually something coming out pretty much every single month, and there's already been a few hardcover books to be released. So that's going to be the focus of this video. The next video will talk about some of the accessories. And the third video will be discussing the adventures that have been released, again, to the date that I am recording this series of videos. So, now this isn't going to be like a buyer's guide as me telling you necessarily need these books. What these are going to be sort of like little mini reviews, discussing what's sort of in the book and what my thoughts on it are, and who would be best served by purchasing the book in question, whether it's players or game masters. Ultimately, the decision of what it is that you're looking for and what type of information you want in your books and what your budget is, that's going to be entirely up to you. I will certainly recommend things and perhaps even suggest an order of purchase if you're considering collecting extensively for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but like I said, ultimately the decision of what it is that you want or what you're going to be interested in is going to be yours. However, one thing that I think is pretty universal is that if you are looking to get into 2nd Edition Pathfinder, you're going to need the core rulebook, which is what we have here first. Now, Pathfinder 2nd Edition is honestly, having run it for most of the last year, up until the pandemic at least, I will say is honestly one of my favorite tabletop RPGs. I love the character creation system with the attributes being derived by your ancestry, your background, and even your class, sort of affecting that as well. I really love the degree of customization that you get with all of these, ancestries and class features. It takes sort of, feats, which can be sort of minor class abilities that are specific to just that individual class, but it lets you sort of design it the way that you want to. One of the strengths, I think, with this edition is that you can have multiple players playing the same race or ancestry and the same class and have very different feeling characters, just based on the decisions that they make with their ancestry feats, with their class features, and class feats and stuff like that. So I really enjoy that. The 3-action combat system as well is a lot of fun because you can just, the players can sort of describe what it is that they want to do, and then you as the game master can try to, work out how many actions that it takes. And yeah, it's just a really enjoyable system for me. I do plan on doing a deeper dive into the rules and character creations and some of the mechanics, because I've had people ask me about that as well. So that's a video series that I'll be doing hopefully in the near future. But for now, the core rulebook is something that is going to be useful for players and game masters alike. And that's because this massive 600 plus page book is both your player's guide and your game master's guide all in one, which is one of the things that I do really like about the Paizo RPGs, is that they do bundle their game master's guide and their player's books all into one. So it might be a more expensive book to buy versus just getting one or the other from other systems, but at $59.99 US, it's still a pretty decent price, again, considering this is a 600-page book that is all the rules that you need to play and to run. So I think it's really useful from that perspective. And I don't know, I just love, these big giant tomes just loaded with information. And if you're looking to get into Pathfinder 2nd Edition, this is what I would consider to be an essential purchase. So that is the first thing. Up next, we have the Bestiary. So this is your monster book. This is a book that I would honestly recommend specifically for game masters. This isn't really a tome or a product that you would need as a player if you're just playing a player character. Even if you have animal companions, I believe their base stats are provided in the core rulebook and you sort of modify them from there. But this is the quintessential monster book for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This is sort of your traditional book here with over 300 interesting monsters. These are kind of your staple creatures. So there are some awesome, interesting things like the Brain Collector, for example, that's in here. So not everything is sort of standard fare. There are some interesting, unique creatures in here, but by and large, this is going to be sort of your big go-to book if you are looking to run, campaigns or adventures, especially if you're designing things yourself. So it's just, again, really, really great to see that. And again, just beautiful artwork throughout here. And yeah, just some awesome creatures overall. And yeah, I really enjoy a lot of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition creature design. I just think that they just look really awesome. Like black dragons are my favorite dragons to begin with, but this one here looks just so cool, and they just did an awesome job with it. The creature mechanics are also really well done, in my opinion. Things like disease and poison feel much more significant because they actually have multiple stages where they can, get progressively worse in terms of the damage that you take or the other effects that they apply. So I think just overall they did a really awesome job with the creatures in here and with the way they designed creatures and abilities. So this is something that I would dare say is an essential pickup if you are someone that is going to be running Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you're going to be a player, you don't really need this. You can stick with just the core rulebook, but for game masters, this is a very important purchase, so I highly, highly, highly recommend this one. Along those lines, we also have the Bestiary 2. So this is the newest of the monster books to come out. So this has a collection of 300 more monsters and stuff in here. And again, there's some really cool stuff. I guess I should also mention the retail prices for these books are $49.99 for the original Bestiary and $49.99 for the Bestiary 2. So the same price for both those books. But this one here, like I said, it gives you some new creatures to use, some of which are, staple or fan favorites. There's things like the Froghemoth, which, what are we on there? 122. I gotta see my friend the Froghemoth, one of my just favorite goofy looking creatures. Like, how can you not love that guy? I don't know. It's just awesome. But there's also some interesting creatures from like literature or fairy tale lore. I guess not fairy tale, but there's like Grendel from Beowulf, and there's the Jabberwock from the Alice series, like Alice Through the Looking Glass or Alice in Wonderland. So yeah, it's just, again, an interesting collection of creatures in here, and it's a great expansion to the monster variety. Now, personally, I would say that this is something to pick up, but I would pick it up, obviously, following the number sequence. This is a great book, and I do highly recommend it. But if you're, for bestiaries, I do advise getting Bestiary 1 first, and then looking at this one afterwards. Now, I will also say, if you are someone who's going to be running a lot of the adventure paths, which is sort of the approach that I take for the most part when it comes to running games these days, I'd modify them, of course, and will add or change things based off of my players' actions. But if you're using the pre-written adventures as a template, eventually you are going to want to get these books, because the future adventure paths will just simply reference the book available, and you may not necessarily have the stat block included if this book has already been out for quite some time and released well before that particular adventure path. So it is something to keep in mind there. Definitely a worthwhile purchase, and just get Bestiary 1 first, obviously, and if you're looking for some more creatures, then this is an absolutely excellent pickup as well. Alright, so up next, I want to discuss the Game Mastery Guide. So this is sort of an expansion on some Game Master information that is brought up in the core rulebook, but there's also a lot of just new and useful tools added to this book here. It also gives you just a great deal of information on running and designing and things to keep in mind when you are running RPGs. And it's great information to have, and I think this is actually really useful for beginners, people that are just sort of getting into running RPGs maybe for the first time, or they play it a lot but don't have a lot of experience on the other side of the Game Master screen. So there's a lot of great basic information there. It's like over 50 pages worth of stuff that is sort of fundamental, and while veteran Game Masters might take that information for granted, honestly, I looked through it, I read through that section, and I really enjoyed the information that was provided there. And I think even for veterans, there's some good stuff to read in there, and maybe some habits that you've sort of fallen into or gotten comfortable with that you may want to look at sort of adjusting or changing. And there's advice on stuff like that in here. The tools section is also absolutely great. The creature building rules are an excellent template to go off of if you're looking to design your own custom creatures. What it does is it gives you ability score ranges to use based on like how powerful you want them to be. Like, for example, if you want a creature that's going to be very strong, you'd want higher stats in like strength and con, and lower points in things like intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. So it sort of gives you that information, as well as like hit point values, damage ranges. So there's just a lot of useful information in there as well. There's information on building hazards, or like traps basically, building items, intelligent items, cursed items, which I don't think get used nearly enough in modern RPGs, as well as some information on artifacts, gems, building worlds, nations, settlements, planes of existence. This is, again, another fantastic chapter. My favorite part is honestly the subsystems section here. So this gives you a victory point system that you can apply to different things, and it gives you some examples of like influence, so using a victory point system or concept for influence if you're looking to do like social types of situations or encounters or adventures. That's really great for that. Researching chases is sort of almost like a skill challenge type of scenario, but it's again a really interesting aspect of the game. And they did release a deck of cards for running chases to make them a little bit easier to do, a little quicker to do. I did a video on those, and I'll talk about those in the accessories video. But that's awesome. There's also infiltration, reputation, duels, leadership, information on hex crawling. And hex crawling is sort of a lost art form, I think, when it comes to RPGs. A lot of the modern ones don't really focus on it, or you'll get products that have it, but doing it sort of detracts from the story that they're trying to tell, or at odds with the story that they're trying to tell. But hex crawling can be a lot of fun, and can be a really interesting way to run some adventures. So great stuff there. Variant rules, and then there's an NPC gallery. Actually, the variant rules, what's kind of cool about it is it introduces things like stamina points. So it kind of makes it so that if you're someone who's run or played Starfinder, you can actually use like the stamina system for like hit points, and then stamina points, which come back a lot easier or quicker. If you like that aspect of Starfinder, then there's an alternate system for Pathfinder that lets you do that as well. But then you have a whole bunch of NPCs, like over 40 pages worth of NPC blocks, stat blocks, and it gives you all kinds of great things there. So this is another very, very worthwhile pickup. It is $49.99 as well. Now, again, this is something that you may want to consider if you are, especially I think if you are a newer game master, this is going to be invaluable to you with all the information in there. But I think just for game masters in general, this is an excellent pickup. This is something I would probably place if I were to buy these books myself to build up my Pathfinder 2nd edition collection, and I was looking to collect an extensive array of books. I would probably get this third after the core rulebook and the Bestiary. And one of the things that I will say is that Paizo has done a decent job releasing these in what I would consider to be the better purchasing order. So, for example, this came out well before the Bestiary 2, so it's easier to sort of to get all these, in the proper order, and the order is logical and makes sense. So, for me personally, like I said, I would get the core rulebook, then the Bestiary, and then this would be the next one that I would end up getting because I think it's absolutely fantastic. So that is the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Game Mastery Guide. Alright, so now we are getting into a series of cheaper products, cheaper books. These are also going to be thinner ones, but there's a lot of great stuff in here as well. These are the Lost Omens books. So there are 3 released thus far. The first one here is the Lost Omens World Guide. So this is sort of a campaign setting type of book. It gives you several different regions that it sort of explains or explores. And for me personally, this book was absolutely fantastic. So Absalon and the Starstone Isle, the Broken Lands, the Magwani Expanse, the Impossible Lands. Just there's a lot of really interesting locations that are described here. And it's, like I said, for me, I came into Pathfinder with 2nd edition. So I didn't really have much of a grasp on the Pathfinder of the world, of Golarion, and, the various continents or, cities or environments that it had. So this book was one of the ones that I was honestly anticipating the most. Because I love a good campaign setting, and this one is absolutely fantastic. It, doesn't give you everything in terms of like information. It really sets you up and gives you a feel for what the regions are, some interesting locations and some of their backgrounds. But it's open enough that it really feels like you can design your own adventures within these borders, and it would make sense. So that's one of the things that I actually really like about it, is it doesn't give you so much information that you feel like you can't put your own personal spin on it, which some other campaign settings in the past have sort of felt that way just based off of how long they've been around and how dedicated people get to them. But I think that they did a really good job with this setting. It also comes with the world map, which is great. It's a double-sided map, and it basically has it's the same world. It's the same map on both sides, but 2 different styles. So you sort of have the more, I don't want to say 1st edition style artwork, but it sort of has a more like animated feeling to it, I guess. I don't know exactly how to phrase it. I don't really want to say cartoony, because I don't think that's fair or accurate. But the other side just looks a little bit more like realistic, I guess, if that's sort of, so if you like the more fantasy look to it, I like this side, but then you also have the more sort of realistic looking side there. So whatever your preference is, but it is the same map on both sides. It's just up to you which one you prefer to have. And I can't remember if I said what the retail price on this was, but this is $36.99. And yeah, for me, this was totally worth it. And if you are someone that likes to, if you're looking to homebrew your games, but you also want to use the official world, then this is a great book. If you just want to learn more about the Pathfinder, like the Golarion world itself, the campaign setting, this was a great book for that, and I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, this is one that I would probably recommend after getting like the core book, the Bestiaries, and the Game Mastery Guide. But again, this is also a cheaper purchase. So if you are concerned about prices and you do have a budget that you have to work within, then this is a great early pickup as well, because it gives you a lot of fuel basically to fire the imagination for creating your own campaigns, or even if you're running the official ones that have been released, having the information in here sort of helps you better flesh out or better run those locations, especially like the Age of Ashes. Adventure Path does a lot of traveling to sort of far away locations within the Golarion world. So this book is really great if you're going to be running Age of Ashes, and I would highly recommend it as a purchase to go along with that. All right, so all the books that we've talked about so far have been ones that I would say are honestly geared towards your game masters. However, we do have a book that I think is very much appropriate for player characters. In fact, it is designed specifically for players, and that is the Lost Omens Character Guide. Now, again, at the time that I'm recording this video, I don't have the Advanced Player's Guide, but that is a book that I think I would again highly recommend as well. But with the Lost Omens Character Guide is a great purchase to have as well. So we'll just take a look at the table of contents here. So what this gives you is a bunch of new options for the pre-existing ancestries from the core rulebook. So we got things for humans, dwarves, elves, gnomes, goblins, and halflings. So that gives you some new heritages, which are sort of like an offshoot of the standard ancestry. And then you also have some new ancestries that you can play in here as well, including the hobgoblins, the lizard folk, and an ancestry that I actually really found myself loving a lot more than I thought I was going to, and that would have to be the Leshy. So the Leshies are these plant-like creatures, but there's like different types. So you have the leafy kind, you have fungus based ones, there's vine Leshies, but then there's my favorite Leshy, which is the gourd Leshy. So here we have the leaf one here, the fungus one here, which actually looks pretty scary looking, but then we have the gourd Leshy. And man, I don't know, I love the artwork here. It's, you know, it's bright, it's colorful, but what's awesome is that what you think of as the head is just this empty cavity sitting on top of the actual Leshy. So, like the Leshy's real, like, I guess brain or central nervous system, whatever you want to refer to, is actually sort of contained within the body. But what's great about these, you know, these gourds are that you can carry stuff in them. You can actually store things in it. So I don't know. I love the idea of finding something valuable and or like purchasing something at like a town market and then just literally just shoving it inside of your face and just sort of see like how everyone sort of reacts to that. So I again, I really enjoy that. There's also some great information about some of the organizations that are in here as well. That you may want to be a part of, or you may want to incorporate into your background if you may be going up against them. So again, there's just a lot of useful information in here, and if you're a player, like I said, you don't really need any of the other books, but this is one that if you're a player and you want some more options, you know, you get the core rulebook, and then this is the next one that I would recommend, and the retail price for this is actually $34.99, so it's a little bit cheaper than the World Guide. But again, there's some great stuff in here, and obviously the next thing that I would recommend for players would have to be the Advanced Player's Guide, but it's not out yet, and I don't have a copy of it yet, and I'm not exactly sure when I'll be able to get a copy of it, when I'll be able to afford it. So in the meantime, this is the player character book that I would recommend the most. And then finally, the last hardcover that's out, at least again as of the recording of this video, which is in early July, we have the Lost Omens Gods and Magic book. Now, I've sort of had a love-hate relationship with deity-based books in the past. They are some of my favorite resources, but they're also kind of disappointing. Some of them are some of the more disappointing books that I've owned. I think the problem for me was always the fact that they just felt like an epic level version of like a bestiary, because a lot of those earlier books have always relied on just giving you the stat blocks for the gods themselves, which, I don't know, it sort of takes something away from them, in my opinion. It takes away a bit from like their sense of power or, you know, importance, because you know, if you have the stats, it's something that the players are eventually just going to want to fight. And I don't really like those kinds of campaigns personally, but this book is actually quite a bit different, and this for me is the standard by which all future god-based or deity-based books that come out for any RPG should live up to. So instead of having the stat blocks for the different deities, and again there's some really awesome artwork in here as well, But it gives you some background stuff for your character. You have like some splinter faith, which allows you to sort of have domain attributes from like a completely different version of like, or different, something that's not directly related to your deity, so you're like this weird offshoot of the standard faith, which is kind of cool. You also have like raised by belief, so there's some cool stuff in here as well. There's information on changing deities as well. But what's awesome about the deity information here is that it's all flavor text, no stat blocks, but it gives you a great deal of information here about sort of the faith and the god and some of their important information to have in mind. It gives you some expressions that are used amongst the faithful of these various deities. But what I really love is it gives you the boons or curses, depending on if you are in the favor or one of the chosen of your deity, or if you're sort of like this foil to them. So eventually you can frustrate a god's design so much that they start putting curses on you, or if you're faithful and you stray from your teachings, your deity may punish you with some of these curses. So I really like this whole aspect of it here. And again, just some really cool artwork in here. I love the Osmodeus art there, or Osmodeus, however you want to pronounce it. I've heard different ways. But yeah, just again, some really cool artwork in here. And I didn't know a ton about the Pathfinder deities because like I said, I just started getting into Pathfinder with 2nd edition. So for me, again, this was another very important book, and I was really, really pleased to see that it is, just flavor and information, and not like, oh, here you have the large majority of the entry on each deity just being their stats. Like I really love the way that they made this. Because I think this is the way it should be done. It's focusing on the faith, focusing on the deity itself, and not just treating it as a super high level monster for your players to go up against. And it also has some other aspects here, like so there's demon lords, you have like these eldest creatures, elemental lords. You also have the inferior lords, which are sort of like your angels or celestials. And then you also have the 4 horsemen, but then you also have my favorite inclusion, the outer gods and the great old one, Azathoth, Hastur, Narlethotep, Yog-Sothoth. I just really, really enjoy going through this book. There's also some new spells and stuff included as well, so again, there's some great stuff to have in here. Overall, though, I would honestly say that this is probably another Game Master book. This is one that, as a player, it's probably worth, looking into as well if you're looking to expand your collection. But I would honestly just recommend this more as a Game Master book, so that you sort of have, the information on the faiths, but you can also use the spells as sort of like unique rewards, I guess, or you can sort of have it so that maybe not everyone has access to them, but you can sort of pass them out as like like treasure or unique abilities that other characters may not have. I don't know. I kind of like that idea, but this is one that is honestly useful for anyone, player or game master alike. I guess I lean towards Game Master mainly because that's my role when it comes to pretty much every RPG these days. But yeah, really I have to say that Paizo has consistently done a really fantastic job with all of these products, and I'm really impressed and pleased with the quality that they have for everything overall. Like, so I just think they've done just such a wonderful job with everything. And Pathfinder 2nd Edition, like I said, after about a year of running it, is among my favorite RPGs, and I would honestly right now probably put it at the very top of that list. I've just loved reading through the books. I've loved running the games and just going through that whole process. It sort of reinvigorated me and got me really pumped up to run games again. So I can't say enough good things about it. And if you were sort of thinking about it or interested in it, I do definitely recommend checking it out. Maybe joining a game if you can. There are online videos as well of people like playing the actual game that you may want to look into. I know Paizo has some great ones on their YouTube page and other links that you can access through their other social media. But I just honestly I think it's definitely worth checking out if you love fantasy RPGs and you want something that's got a little bit more crunch to it, a little bit more in terms of like strategy or more of a focus on on like a more rules heavy, I guess, system. This is an absolutely fantastic game to pick up. It's not so rules heavy that it becomes overwhelming in my opinion, so I think they struck a pretty good balance with it. But it is a crunchier system, so if you sort of miss that, or it's something that you're looking for in a fantasy RPG, then this is an excellent one to pick up. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful, at least knowing sort of what to expect with each of these books, and decide from there if it's something that you're looking to add to your collection or not. Like I said, I don't think you're going to go wrong with any of these purchases, but ultimately it's up to you to decide what it is that you're looking for, what you're interested in or not interested in. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you come back for the second part in this series, where I take a look at the Pathfinder 2nd Edition accessories. We're going to look at character sheets, Game Master screen, and a whole bunch of different card sets. So I'm really looking forward to doing that video as well. So thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care.